Hey, yo everyone, Andrew here, bringing you another video review, and today we're going to be doing Green Arrow, issue number 1 through 7. Take a look at these comic covers right here. Now, for those who are new to my channel, you may not know my opinions on Green Arrow. So, for the sake of this video, I'm going to briefly give you guys how I feel about Green Arrow. Now, on a whole, I like the concept of Green Arrow. You know, this flashy playboy archer who goes around on adventures and takes out enemies using various different kind of arrows. Trick arrows or just technologically advanced arrows, whatever the case may be. He's like a modern day Robin Hood without actually becoming a parody of Robin Hood. He is his own character and it works out very nicely. However, despite the fact that I like the concept of Green Arrow, I don't like Green Arrow. Before Flashpoint, Oliver Queen was the biggest dick in all of comic books. Allow me to explain. I really didn't like Oliver Queen as a character. Why? 1, he cheats on his spouses. 2, he seduces other people's wives into having affairs. Most notably is Monoto Raven and his wife Dawn. He lies to his children all the time, and to his sidekicks all the time. And he's a dick to all the superheroes. Namely, he's a dick to Batman, and most notably in my mind, to Hawkman. I'll give an example. Hawkman, you know, he has this constant reincarnation, and his wife's soul was reincarnated into a 19-year-old girl's body. And Hawkman's having turmoil in his heart about what's going on. Should he pursue her? Should he not? Should they go their separate ways? And Green Arrow's just a dick about it. He's bashing Hawkman, calling him a sketchy old man, a perv, and it's like, you're not in Hawkman's situation. This is a unique situation. And he didn't even give any genuine words of advice. So Green Arrow, in addition to that, he has a horrible temper, and he will go off, and he was more concerned on killing Prometheus than caring for his ward who had just lost his daughter. A lot of people attribute this to the fact that Green Arrow is a faulty character, and that's what makes him interesting. I attribute it to the fact that he's too much of a faulty character, and that makes him a dick. It's fine that he has faults here and there. It's okay he has a temper, but sometimes he just comes off as a complete asshole because of it. So I never really got into Green Arrow. I never really cared about Green Arrow because I never really cared about Oliver Queen. However, when the relaunch was announced, I said to myself and to you guys that this is a chance for me to like Green Arrow, to get a fresh start with the character. However, when the comics came out, issue number 1, I didn't pick it up. Mostly because of money, and also, as much as I wanted to give Green Arrow a second chance, I wasn't really that interested. I mean, yes, I wanted to give him a second chance, but there wasn't enough there for me to actually go about doing it. A couple months down the line, like about 4 months into the relaunch, I said, you know, I should pick up Green Arrow, but I couldn't find issue number 1 anywhere, and everyone was requesting for me to actually pick up Green Arrow. Next to Animal Man, he is probably the most requested comic book character that you guys would like me to review, or at the very least, read. A lot of people say that I should give this comic a shot, but again, I looked everywhere and I couldn't find issue number 1. However, luckily, I was talking to my comic book guy about a week or 2 ago, and I said to him, hey, do you have any of the issue number 1s for DC Comics? Because I was hoping to pick up some of the new 52 issue number 1s, and he had a box full of almost every single number 1 and a few copies of them. So I picked up Green Arrow, and I picked up the rest of the issues. And I figured I might as well give Ollie a chance. It is a fresh start, and with a lot of my comics getting canceled, such as Men at War, OMAC, so on and so forth, I might as well see if Oliver Queen, Green Arrow, is worth picking up. So what I'm going to basically do is talk about the story arcs, talk about what I like, what I don't like, and if I'm going to continue picking up this comic. So just give me 1 moment and we'll jump into the review. So let's start things off with the actual story arcs in Green Arrow, issue number 1 through 7. There's kind of 2 story arcs in this, although we get a start to a new story arc in issue number 7. For the sake of this video, I'm probably not going to talk about issue 7 that much. But the first story arc deals with Green Arrow going up against a bunch of punks, and I'm going to call them punks, but they're metahuman punks, who go around, beat up or commit crimes or, hurt superheroes and videotape it, and then put it on YouTube or on their Q-pads, not iPad, Q-pads, or their various different technological devices and have those videos go viral. Which on its own, a interesting concept. This is for the first 3 issues of Green Arrow, and their leader is known as Rush. Now, the next story arc deals with Green Arrow going up against a mysterious woman known as Blood Rose. And she is teaming up with this zombie-looking creature, almost swamp thing-ish, called Midas. And they have a beef against Green Arrow, in particular Blood Rose does. But it's not really Green Arrow, it's more Oliver Queen that they have a beef with. Of course, they don't know they're one and the same. And then the last story arc, which has just started, is Green Arrow getting into a little mischief with some triplets. And when I mean a little bit of mischief, I mean a lot of mischief. The girls start acting like they're best friends with Green Arrow, and then, stuff happens. So, let's talk about what I liked and what I didn't like about the story arcs. Actually, we're going to jump right into the good, the bad, and whether or not you should get it, because that's the best way for me to kind of go about this. Good is, one is Oliver Queen is kind of what I want to be, character-wise. Although the character isn't overwhelmingly interesting, and I felt as though he has no character arc thus far, he's not an asshole, he's not chauvinistic, he's not a womanizer, he doesn't come off as a betrayer of friends. He comes off what I kind of want Oliver Queen to be. A flashy, swashbuckling, almost semi-flamboyant character who is always out there for an adventure, which I like. I also like the fact that he uses more gadgets than just his arrows. He actually has different utility items to help him out, like sonic grenades or special discs that do various different things. He's not just relying on the arrows. While those are his main primary source of weaponry, he has other stuff, which is kind of cool. It gives him a little bit more diversity with what he can do. Green Arrow's supporting cast, while at first kind of starts off as weak, actually grew out to be a good supporting cast. Now, with Green Arrow as a character, I really didn't read his material beforehand, so I didn't really know his supporting cast beforehand. And going into a new comic, creating a whole new supporting cast could actually be a big risk, because people may not give a shit. But I actually started to like Green Arrow's sidekicks, for lack of a better term. The people that help him out. I remember their names. I like their personalities. I think that they're unique and different without being too unique and different that it's just like, oh, really? You're stereotyping these characters. So, I kind of like the supporting cast in this. I think they're good, I think they're witty, and I think they bounce off Green Arrow pretty well. And the villains on a whole come off as pretty interesting, and the story arcs come off as interesting. I think that the first story arc is really interesting because it ties into what's happening in the world today with videos going viral. What happens when villains start to use those? And the action is pretty good. The action is pretty good. Bad. Like I said, Green Arrow as a character has no character arc right now. I could care 2 lickings about Oliver Queen. While he doesn't offend me, he doesn't interest me. I actually have more interest in his supporting characters than him himself. While the story arcs are great ideas, they really don't go anywhere. They feel rushed, and it feels as though instead of 3 issues for each story arc, there should have been 4. And it feels as though once these story arcs are over, I'm not going to see these villains again. Maybe Blood Rose I'll see again, but I'm not sure about Rush and his crew, and I really like the idea of that. I probably would have handled the first story arc a little differently. Maybe not make Rush the big bad, make someone else behind Rush, but yeah, the story arcs were a bit short and a bit lacking. You had a good idea, it just didn't come to fruition. So I didn't really care for that. And while the villains were interesting, they weren't really taken to a great degree. For example, Blood Rose was, and I don't want to give anything away or spoil anything, but she has a uniqueness to her, and she's obsessed with Oliver Queen, but not in the sense that most women are. And it's never really touched upon about why she's obsessed, at least not to a great degree, and I felt as though she had a great character motivation, but it just really wasn't, you know, it wasn't pushed that much. So I really didn't care for that. And I think that's the biggest problem, is we have good ideas for stories and good ideas for villains, but the villains don't work out. I think Green Arrow really should have done is, when it came down to the villains, did what Blue Beetle did. Take recognizable villains from the DC universe, whether they be A-listers or D-listers, and utilize them. Creating new villains that are all well and good, but it works out better for the bigger names like Superman, Batman, and Green Lantern, because they're characters that are strong enough that if you introduce a new villain, it's not going to dampen their book. With Green Arrow, he almost needs to rely on his villains. He needs a good rogue gallery of recognizable characters. I wouldn't mind having a character like Merlin show up, or David Kane, or maybe a League of Assassins, or something. Someone that is recognizable, but not too far-fetched where he's going to go up against, like, General Zod. Like I said, I think introducing Merlin would have been a good start, and then had a second story, a subplot that's going on through all the issues about how the League of Assassins are really mad with Oliver Queen for whatever reason. Maybe he makes, I don't know, some kind of technological advancement that they don't like. Or maybe he's voicing off against the League. I don't know. I'm just taking a random villain. It could be anything. You could have it be Solomon Grundy. And you can have a character like that and have it be a recognizable villain, but at the same time not overuse him and oversaturate him, and have it be illogical that Green Arrow is going up against him. Because Green Arrow is like Batman. As skilled as he is, he's human. You're not going to see him go up against Bizarro and get away with it too many times, at least. I mean, it's believable if maybe Batman's put up against, like, say, Bizarro, and he finds a way out of it, but toe-to-toe constantly, it's not going to work. So I think the villain choices should have been done differently. Maybe ooh, you know what would have been good? And I just thought of this. The first story arc dealing with Rush and his viral video people, Roulette should have been behind it. If you know Roulette, she showed up in the DC animated universe, and she also made some appearances in the DC comic book universe. The ones that I remember are the Wonder Woman ones, although I think she showed up in some of the crossovers, like even Countdown. Not talk about that, but you get my point. I think the villains in the story arcs were the biggest no-nos in this. Whether or not I'm going to continue getting it. Well, in comparison to the first 7 issues of Blue Beetle, which I kind of got simultaneously with these, I have to say Blue Beetle was a much better comic. Green Arrow, however, is not a horrible comic. It's a good comic. There's good ideas. Well, I don't know if it's a good comic. There's good ideas. It doesn't offend me, but it just doesn't have that wow factor. And, you know, a lot of people are saying this is like an F comic. I wouldn't give it that kind of rating. I would give it like a C. I think in comparison to a lot of the other DC comics in the New 52, such as Swamp Thing, Batman, Wonder Woman, Animal Man, Justice League, in comparison to all those comics, yeah, this kind of looks crappy in comparison. However, on its own, self-contained, it's not bad. I just think as though those issues should have been addressed. If I had control of Green Arrow, I would like to think that I would have done something a little bit more drastic to kind of throw in the face of people and be like, whoa, what's going on? But then again, I'm not a writer. I can pontificate all I want about how I could fix it, but for all I know, I could just be digging a deeper grave for Green Arrow. But, will I continue reading it? Yes, I will. Will it be on like a consistent basis? I don't know. I can't guarantee that. I may pick it up casually, I may pick it up a month late, but I will continue Green Arrow because he did tickle my fancy enough. But like I said, it's definitely not the best comic out of the DCU, and I think it's not going to be the best comic for everyone. I still highly recommend Blue Beetle over this. I thought Blue Beetle was a great comic. This comic was mediocre. And the thing that bothers me is J.T. Kroll is a great writer. He did a fantastic job with that Men of War story. I'm looking forward to him on the GI combat. He's also doing, I believe, Captain Atom. I could be wrong on that. If I am, please correct me. But he's a good writer. He really is a good writer. And I don't think it's really JT Kroll. I think they might. I don't know. Something didn't work out. One other thing I do want to mention is I do like Ollie's new look. I like that he's younger, and I think the art was really good in this too. I really did like the art. If anything didn't get her, it's the art. Although, nothing against the artist in issue number 7, but I don't really care for it as much as the previous issues. It's good art, but it seems a little off at first. So, yes, Green Arrow. It's okay. I'll continue picking it up, but it could be better. Although, not all comics can be Batman. So, I'm going to end this video review here. This is Andrew saying peace out for now.